Now let us see the details about the neuromuscular junction. It is nothing but a structural analog of a synapse in the nervous system. The junction between two neurons in the nervous system is called synapse. Exactly same here, a motor nerve is coming in contact with a skeletal muscle is called neuromuscular junction. Now let us see the diagram which is there in the frame, the neuromuscular junction. What all structures you see there? You can see a motor nerve which is expanded to form a knob, which is coming in contact with the skeletal muscle. What you see there in the point of contact? The sarcolemma is folded into multiple foldings to increase the surface area of contact. Of course, there is a space between the motor knob and the sarcolemma. It is exactly same as that of your synaptic cleft. What else you can see there? The motor nerve is containing lot of vesicles which contains the neurotransmitter of neuromuscular junction. What is that? It is nothing but acetylcholine. It is stored in the vesicles there in the motor knob. Now, on corresponding to sarcolemma, on the multiple foldings, you can see the receptors meant for acetylcholine. Now, this particular junction is totally sealed off by connective tissue. This point of contact of a motor nerve with the skeletal muscle, clinically we call it as a motor endpoint. And the whole structural specialization of the skeletal muscle at the neuromuscular junction is called the motor end plate. Now let us go into the details about the mechanism of transmission of impulse across the neuromuscular junction. Now let us have an animation of mechanism of neuromuscular transmission. Now please have a look into the animation. You may be getting the details about the whole mechanism. What is the first event that is happening? You can see that there is an impulse which is coming at the motor end plate or motor knob. Arrival of action potential. What it result? There will be absolute reversal of membrane potential on the motor nerve. The negativity which was inside is becoming positive, and that will be causing the opening of voltage gated calcium channels. That is the next event that is happening there. When calcium channels are opened, there is no other way the calcium should come in. There will be an influx of calcium into the motor node. This calcium which is influxed in activate the synaptic vesicles. And what will happen to these activated vesicles? You can see there in the video, it moves towards the presynaptic membrane or the motor knob membrane. These activated vesicles will go and fuse with certain specialized areas on the presynaptic membrane, that is nothing but active zones. These vesicles fuse with the active zones. This process is called docking of vesicles. What will be the outcome of this docking? You can see there in the video, the acetylcholine, which is the neurotransmitter, is released into the cleft, that is the space between the motor nerve and the sarcolemma. This acetylcholine swim across the space, they go and bind on the receptors, acetylcholine receptors on the muscle membrane. These receptors are nothing but the sodium channels. They are ligand gated channels. Once these channels are opened, the sodium gets entry into the skeletal muscles. The initial trickling in of sodium cause mild depolarizations on the muscle membrane that you can see there in the video. Those mild depolarizations, local potential fluctuations, are called end plate potentials. Mind you, they are not action potentials. We will discuss how it is different from action potential later part. These are end plate potentials, mild depolarizations. highly localized, they are not propagative at all. What will be the result of this end plate potential? When multiple end plate potentials are produced at multiple points, they fuse together, they summate together and develop into an action potential in a full-fledged manner. This is one way. There is another way is that if end plate potentials are produced at the same point, one after the other, before the decay of the previous one, they also summate and ultimately grow into an action potential. So the first summation, simultaneous, is called spatial summation. One after the other, sequentially summating, we call it as temporal summation. So what are the two types of summation for end plate potentials? You can see there in the video, they can be a temporal summation or it can be a spatial summation. But ultimately, they are growing into a full-fledged action potential. You know that action potentials are not stationary. They are propagative, is it not? They move from one point to another in a self-propagative manner. So action potential comes in the motor nerve, jumping across the neuromuscular junction and forming an action potential on the muscle membrane, and they travel. So this whole mechanism is ultimately resulting in activation of the skeletal muscle. This is the whole story behind neuromuscular transmission.